Hello, friends. My name is Jamie Colora, and this is a presentation that I gave that I wanted to record so that I could share it with more people. I want to teach you my approach to health and weight loss and how to stop emotional eating. Have you ever heard the phrase, your body is a gift, and felt something other than gratitude? Maybe you heard that and you felt guilty because maybe sometimes you don't take care of your body very well. I like to say that health and weight loss is 20% what you eat and 80% your mindset, or in other words, how you think about what you eat. And I hope that after this presentation, you leave with tools to help you with the practicalities of what you should be eating, because that information can be very confusing, and some mindset tools that I used in order to feel in control of my eating choices. So, this is what I actually love about health and weight loss. Someone asked me recently, when did you get into nutrition? And the answer is, I kind of never got into nutrition. I like nutrition, but I'm not crazy about it. What I am crazy about are the mindset tools that I teach, and the benefits that I get from that are actually more self-love. I've learned how to keep promises to myself. I've learned about myself and my emotions and my thoughts. And what if health and weight loss wasn't about health and weight loss at all? What if it was about the fun of the challenge and becoming more like God? Because I believe that that's why we are here on this earth, is to become more like God. And I believe that health and weight loss is so much more successful when we come at it not from this, I have to lose weight so that I can finally love myself, but from a place of already loving ourselves and then treating our bodies better as a result. So, true to the 20% what you eat, 80% mindset, I'm going to spend about 20% of the time talking about the practicalities and the science of health and weight loss, and then the other 80% talking about the mindset. So, your body has two main sources of fuel. You are either burning sugar or you're burning fat. And in order to lose weight, we have to tap into the metabolism, the part of our bodies that metabolizes fat. So, your body is really accustomed to burning one of these two sources of fuel. So, if you are a sugar burner, some indicators of that may be frequent hunger. When you are hungry, it feels like an emergency. It feels like you've got to get the first thing that you can find into your mouth, or else we're going to die. Your cravings will be frequent, the cravings for sugar especially. You'll experience energy crashes, and a really good indicator that you are a sugar burner is if you are carrying extra belly fat. If you are a fat burner, on the other hand, you can much more easily wait to eat until your next meal. And when you are hungry, it feels more like a gentle little nudge, nudge, please feed us soon type of feeling. Your cravings are less frequent, you have more consistent energy, and you have an effortlessly lean body. So I really like this analogy that I learned to kind of explain how we can get your body accustomed to burning fat. So on the left here, I've got a refrigerator, and on the right, I have a freezer. And we're going to assume that the refrigerator is full of really accessible foods that you can just like open up and start eating right away. And it's in your kitchen, it's very accessible. The freezer in this analogy is in the garage. The food inside is frozen, and you're going to have to thaw it and cook it in order to access it. So, in order to help your body transition into a fat burning state, you're going to have to create a metabolic shift. And just a heads up, this process can be a little bit miserable, because if you are very used to getting that easily accessible energy, and then I'm telling you that now you're going to need to go out to the garage and get the food and thaw it and cook it, you're not going to be very happy if you are really accustomed to just grabbing something out of the fridge. So the way that we access fat, the way that this analogy makes more sense is that the key to losing weight is to control our body's insulin. So let's assume that our bodies will not go to the freezer until the fridge is empty. And the way that we empty the fridge is by eating less sugar, eating less flour, and eating less often, namely 3 times a day, eating 3 meals a day. And so what happens when we eat something that spikes our insulin is we're putting a lot of energy into that fridge, and we're not allowing our bodies to burn the fat. When we snack all day, we're constantly putting that figurative food into that fridge, and we're not allowing our body to access the fat. So again, our glucose stores must be, or better said, our insulin needs to be not present in our bodies in order for our bodies to burn fat. So to kind of summarize the action steps, that the only thing you need to do to become a fat burner is you need to eat less sugar, eat less flour, eat less often, 3 meals a day, no snacks. And also, of course, because we want to focus on not the scarcity parts of health, but that you need to eat more good stuff when you're hungry and stop when you're full. And I think a lot of nutrition approaches tend to be a lot more complicated. They'll give us a huge laundry list of things that we can't eat, or they'll tell us that we have to do some type of detox or cleanse. But I promise you that if you do this long term, you will get healthier and you will lose weight. It's very, very simple. Just those 4 things are all you need to know about nutrition. People make it so much more complicated than it needs to be. So how do we do this? Why is this so much easier said than done? I think that we make it more complicated because we don't want to accept that we are the problem. I think that we decide that there must be some complicated solution, because otherwise I have no one to blame but myself. So let's talk about that. I found this image on an Instagram page, and it kind of illustrates 2 different ways that people approach health. And just a heads up, neither of these are my approach, but I want to explain them to differentiate mine from others. So on this left column, we have a scarcity mindset. This is the dieting mindset. So we have this person, they want chocolate, and instead of just eating some chocolate, they drink a chocolate protein shake, which doesn't satisfy their craving because it's not real chocolate. So they go throughout their day, they're still craving chocolate, and instead they eat fruit, crackers, and nuts. Then by the end of the day, they are still craving chocolate, and so they kind of go overboard and they eat a ton, and then they end up feeling really guilty. Whereas on the right side of this graph, this is kind of an intuitive eating approach. So it says we wait until we're hungry and we incorporate chocolate into our next meal, and we don't have to eat the entire bar because we know that we can always have more later, and we just move on with our lives. And I think that this is a great approach if the main emotion fueling you wanting to eat that chocolate is desire. Because there's nothing wrong with eating a tiny bit of chocolate. But what I found for me was that I couldn't just eat a little bit of something that I wanted. I would end up going overboard even when I told myself that I was only going to have a little bit. And that's where my approach comes in. So this is just a series of questions that I ask myself, and I'll get into this more, but the series of events that happens when I crave something is I'll first ask myself, am I physically hungry or am I emotionally hungry? Because there is a difference, and it takes a little bit to kind of distinguish between the two. I ask myself, what is the emotion driving the craving? Again, if it's desire, I might be able to grant myself a little bit. But if it's something like stress or boredom or loneliness or restlessness or anger or frustration, I don't know about you, but just a little bit of chocolate doesn't really take the edge off of those emotions for me. I need to eat more and more and more in order to kind of numb those emotions that I'm resisting. And that leads to, I ask myself, am I allowing the emotion or resisting? And I'll go more into this. There's a big difference between willpower and processing emotion. And I'll teach you how to process an emotion instead of resisting it. And then after you've done that, ask yourself, like, what do I really need right now? If hunger is not the problem, then food is not the solution. So we need to find out what the problem is and find a solution for that instead of using food. So this is the number one mindset tool that I use. This is the self-coaching model developed by Brooke Castillo, and it is a formula that I use. It's the lens that I use to look at anything in my life, really. And it's just this incredible psychological tool that I use to help me to stop overeating. So the basic premise is that the circumstances in our lives are the outside things that happen to us or that we observe, and they are neutral until we give meaning to them with our thoughts. Our thoughts then create our feelings. Our feelings fuel our actions, and our actions give us our results. And in the health and fitness world, they focus a lot on the actions and the results, almost primarily. But if this is a chain reaction, instead of trying to force different actions out of ourselves to get different results, it's so, so important that we take a look at the thoughts and the feelings that are creating those actions or inactions. So I'm going to break down each of these 5 things and relate them to health and weight loss. So first I want to give you an example of how the model works. So the circumstance, we could say, for example, you ate X amount of cookies. Let's say you had a really bad day, and so you ate 10 cookies. And your thought about that was, I'm the worst. I keep on doing this. I'm never going to lose weight. What is wrong with me? I'm such a pig. Any series of those thoughts. And when you think those thoughts, what feeling does it produce? Maybe it produces some version of shame, some version of not feeling like you're enough, you're disappointed in yourself. And I don't know about you, but shame for me, it feels really low energy, really heavy. And when we're beating ourselves up, what's our action look like? It usually looks like forcing ourselves to eat better, but again, shame is emotionally exhausting, and so the change does not last. And what is our result? This is so interesting because another part of the model that you should be aware of is that the thought will always show up in the result. So our result is that we are not only looking for evidence that we're the worst, but because of that low energy, emotionally exhausting shame, we also create evidence for ourselves that we're the worst. And we ultimately just spin in this cycle of shame. So let's break this down. Circumstances, these are neutral and they are never the problem. A lot of us think that our feelings come from our circumstances, but really our circumstances they're just neutral. They don't mean anything until we give meaning to them. So some examples are the number on the scale, food, and the weight loss process are all neutral. People like to place morality to food. They say this is good food and this is bad food, but I think that that attitude is actually causing more of the problem that we saw in the model that I showed you. And as far as the number on the scale, something really interesting, I actually encourage my clients to weigh themselves every day. And the reason that I do that is two reasons. One, because the number on the scale it's just scientific information. It's actually pretty useful if we can analyze the data of what we're eating and how that translates to the scale on a daily basis and see what that's creating. It's just neutral scientific information. And the second reason why I encourage people to do that is so that they can practice making it neutral. They can practice recognizing that the number on the scale is simply the amount of gravitational pull on our bodies, and it doesn't mean anything about you. So I like people to practice neutralizing that and stop making it mean something about them. But you can take that or leave that, whatever is most useful to you. More examples of circumstances. We like to say that these things are the reason why we can't be healthy. We say that school is too busy, or we have too much work. Maybe someone said something mean to us about our weight, and we're using those words against ourselves in some way. Maybe we had a binge, like in that model where we ate 10 cookies. Maybe we're using that against ourselves. Maybe we're using that as evidence that we can't change. We're saying that we don't have enough money to be healthy. Our husband, he doesn't comply with when we tell him that we're going to change our habits. He doesn't want to change, so he sits on the couch next to us eating ice cream, and we're like, what the heck? I told you that I was trying to change the way I was eating, but husband doesn't care. He doesn't want to change the way he's eating, so we use that as an excuse. Or different social events, we feel socially pressured to eat. So none of these things are the problem. We use them as excuses a lot, and we think that they're stopping us from achieving the health results that we want. But at the end of the day, these are all neutral, and they have no meaning until we attach meaning to them with our thoughts. So, good segue into thoughts. This is where the actual problem lies, the way that we interpret our circumstances. And these are some common sabotaging thoughts that I have used, or that my brain has offered to me, I should say, that I'm too busy. The holidays, like, I just have to eat the holiday food, right? I deserve it. I had a really hard day. I'll just work it off at the gym tomorrow. I don't want to offend someone by not eating this food when they offer it to me. I'm addicted to sugar. I'm just not a salad person. I'm not good at cooking. My husband won't eat healthy with me. I don't want to waste this food, so I might as well eat it. And all of this stuff is too confusing, so I might as well just not do anything. And what's really important is that when people uncover what thoughts they're thinking, their immediate knee-jerk reaction is, help me to stop thinking that so that I can create a better result. But we really need to slow down, because awareness of what our thoughts are is the most important thing we can do. We need to slow down and get compassionate and curious and figure out, like, why does your brain think that that thought is important? Why do we think that? Like, and have compassion for it. Of course, that's the way that I think. It makes sense. And then just observing that, and the more that you understand it and you're compassionate with it, the more you can kind of just let it go. So I encourage people to, because a lot of people don't know what their thoughts are. So I encourage people to do what's called a thought download, where you write about a certain topic, just completely unfiltered, no one's going to read it. Find out what your thoughts are and get them out on paper, and just take a look at what result that might be giving you in your life. Okay, so your thoughts create your feelings. This is huge. So this is why willpower doesn't work. I like to give this analogy of a beach ball. So if you push a beach ball underneath the water, after a while, you're going to get really tired and it's going to come shooting up out of the water. And this is kind of what happens when we resist our emotions. It's like we push them underneath the water, and then what happens is they come shooting out. And when we are talking about health and weight loss, how that often manifests itself is we resist an emotion, we resist our desire to eat something, and then just like that image that I showed you, we end up kind of binging on the other end. We go overboard, we overeat. So instead of doing that, this is how you process an emotion. So first, you will want to find it in your body. Is it primarily in your stomach? Is it in your chest? Is it in your throat? Is it in your head? Where physically on your body is the emotion located? Because emotions are created from hormones, that when we think a thought, it releases a hormone and it causes a physiological response in our bodies. So you're going to want to find where that is located and name it. Is it sadness? Is it depression? Is it anxiety? Is it stress? Is it loneliness? Is it boredom? Is it restlessness? Is it even happiness? Because a lot of us eat when we're happy as well. So find it in your body, name it, and then describe it the best you can. If you had to assign like a temperature or a color or a speed to it, like is it slow, is it fast, is it hot, is it cold, what color would you describe it as? Just like get really present with what does this feel like? And remember that it's only there because of a sentence in your brain. Emotions cannot hurt you. And then you'll want to, instead of resisting it, you'll want to kind of like lean into it and just allow it to be there. Kind of pull up a chair and say, okay, anxiety, have a seat. We're going to hang out for a while. Like, I know you can't hurt me, and just wait until it passes. And a lot of people get nervous about this. They think, if I just allow my emotions instead of resisting them, aren't they going to overpower me? And the answer is no. I promise you that if you do this, they will pass more quickly. So I believe that God gave us emotions for a reason. I really like, recently I heard the example of boredom. Why did God give us boredom? And the answer was that boredom serves to help us to have more creativity. That often when we're in a state where there's not a lot of stimulation, our brains are more able to be more creative. And so if we are eating food when we're bored, instead of allowing our creativity to do what it does, then we're missing out on opportunities to see where our creativity could take us. So there's so many different ways that our lives can change as a result of allowing our emotions instead of buffering away from them with food. And if we think about it, with boredom, if I were to, going back to that last slide, find it in my body, I don't know where it's located in my body. That's a really hard one to pin down. Like with fear, I know exactly where it is, what it feels like. But with boredom, if we take a step back and we just allow boredom to be there, we realize this isn't even a very big deal. This emotion is not very powerful, and yet I find it so intolerable sometimes that I have to eat something to take the edge off of it. But what if we could just sit with it and realize that it's not going to hurt us, and there might actually be something awesome on the other side of allowing boredom to be there over and over again. So actions, the only thing I want to say about actions, here's another incredible tool that I have as far as an action plan that can help you with the mindset of eating better, is that I have my clients create a 24-hour plan. So what that looks like is usually the night before, I'll have them write down what they're going to eat tomorrow. Because, right, we always say, my diet starts tomorrow. And that's because we're using, in that moment, our higher brains to decide what we're going to eat, instead of letting our lower brains, or as I like to describe them, our toddler brains, throw a fit and cry and say, I want that right now. So we practice making a plan and following through with it so that we're eating intentionally instead of impulsively. And something really important with this is to meet yourself where you are. That it doesn't usually work to change everything all at once. That we're going to want to, when I have people first write a 24-hour plan, I just have them write basically the exact same thing that they ate the day before, and see how well they can follow that, and then make incremental changes. And the point to that is to build up a trust with yourself that you can follow through with what you say that you're going to do. And this creates the opportunity to take massive action. Massive action is acting over and over again without quitting until you get the result that you want. And because I promise you that if you do those things long term, cut down on sugar, cut down on flour, eat 3 meals a day, up the good stuff, that if you do that long term, you will improve your health and lose weight. There's no question about it. But we want to do it in a way that isn't exhausting and that is sustainable for you long term, that you'll make those incremental changes until you are eating in a way that truly blesses your body and that feels very doable to you. And then what I want to say about results is that it's important that we take ownership of our results first. That, remember, first we wanted to blame our results on the fact that we're too busy, or that our husband doesn't want to eat the same way that we do, or that it's too expensive. But when we look at this model, we realize that if our thoughts are the actual problem, that we're the ones that created this result. And that's not to make us feel guilty about our result, but it's to give us accountability. This is the best news ever, that the result is in your hands, that you have the power to change that. But we just need to help you to be more aware of your thoughts, help you to allow emotions, and then we can get you that result that you want. So let's take a new model. Let's do an intentional model to see how we can reframe eating too many cookies. Because as much as we would like to decide that we're going to start eating better and then never make any mistakes. That doesn't happen for anyone. So we need to know how to make mistakes. So let's say our circumstance is, again, just like the last one, you ate X amount of cookies. And instead of telling yourself that you're the worst, you have a thought like, great, this is a learning opportunity. Now that Jamie's taught me how to look at my thoughts and allow my emotions, I can take a look at what was going on for me in that moment. And I think that some of the most useful emotions to fuel our health and weight loss journey are compassion and curiosity. So when I'm feeling compassionate with myself and curious about, what was going on for me in that moment, my action instead looks more like I'm more aware of what's happening with my emotions and with my hunger, and I'm able to take small steps to care for my body a little bit better every day instead of continuing that shame cycle. And then again, your result will always prove your thought true. And so you learn, you become more aware, and you have the emotional energy in order to care for your body long term in a way that feels really good to you. So just to wrap it up again, my mindset tools, the biggest ones I use are that self-coaching model, a 24-hour plan, thought downloads, practicing feeling your feelings, and then the only food strategy tools that I think are the most important. You don't need to do keto or anything like that. All you need to do is eat less sugar, eat less flour, 3 meals a day, no snacks, and just more good stuff. And I know that God gave us emotions for a reason, that it's all part of this beautiful experience that we have here on the earth, and that He wants us to learn how to take care of our bodies and to love ourselves, and that is what I believe that health and weight loss is truly all about. And that the ironic thing is that we're more successful when we don't make it about our weight and we make it about love instead.